recording this. So the question really is, what happens when a biological community gets wrecked, when it's disturbed? Oops, sorry. When it gets wrecked. The interesting thing is, we can predict it pretty perfectly. In 1985, a whole bunch of tornadoes hit Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. I think there were some over into Indiana, and a bunch of them ripped through Columbiana County, Ohio. One of them came through Fairfield Township. Who knows where Crestview High School is? Okay. I was standing in the backyard of my grandparents' farm and watched it come across the field, watched it lift the cider. Yeah. Why weren't we in the basement? Don't know. Because we were watching the tornadoes. Duh. Watched it lift the roof of the cider mill at Middleton, Hayes Cider Mill. And for years afterwards, because there had actually been two small tornadoes that had come down either side of Crestview Road between Crestview High School and New Waterford. And for years and years and years, you could see the path of those tornadoes because you could see where all the trees had been knocked down on either side of Crestview Road. Now, was it a big disturbance? It might have been 20 or 30 feet wide. It wasn't that big. It didn't destroy all the soil bacteria. It didn't kill all the animals. They ran, they hid. But it shook things up. Now, had that been a fire and it had taken out millions of acres, is that a bigger disturbance? Yeah. Now, today, could you even tell where those were? No. That was 30 plus years ago, 35 years ago. You wouldn't be able to pick it out. You wouldn't be able to see it. When an area has been burned, can you tell that the area was burned? When an area has been strip mined, can you tell that it was strip mined? Yeah. Eventually, does it look like it wasn't? Yeah. So the thing about it is that it is very slow, but it is incredibly predictable. And it's called succession. And it's the way that a community basically either appears for the first time or reappears after it's been disturbed. And when I was young, in my early 20s, I worked at Pymatuning State Park. Who here has been to Pymatuning? Okay. I was on the Ohio side, not the PA side. And, as a first-year naturalist, you don't know a whole lot. And they're nice enough to recognize that first-year naturalists are kind of going, oh my God, what do I do with these people? Oh, they expect me to know a whole bunch of stuff about this place. So parks would always send out a sort of an experienced senior naturalist to walk through your whole park with you once, to kind of give you some pointers and go, oh, look, you can interpret this. Oh, hey, do you know what that is? And give you ideas. So there was a trail in the park. It's called the Beaver Dam Trail because if you went back here, there was a beaver dam. Cool. And the Beaver Dam Trail was a 1-mile loop. And going through Beaver Dam Trail with a senior naturalist, it was amazing to me. I was in my early 20s, and I knew stuff. I had a degree in biology, but I didn't necessarily have the application of it yet. So I had learned about the concept of succession and predictability, but this guy walks down the trail, and says, oh, wow, that's a really clear-cut distinction. Look, this area right here, I bet this was farm field about 50 years ago. This is all regrown. Back there, that's been woods far longer. Whoa, really? And then there was an area out by the road, and he's like, I'm going to say maybe 20 years of growth here. Now I could do the same thing, but I couldn't then. If you know what you're looking for, it's incredibly predictable. Totally predictable. You can look at a woods and go, yeah, I'd say, oh, this is old growth. This has been here for hundreds of years. Versus, yeah, this was a farm field 20 years ago. It's so predictable. Now that's secondary succession. The kind we're going to talk about first, primary. There are two kinds. There's primary succession, there's secondary succession. And we are going to talk about primary succession first. So this is where there was no biological community before. This is when you are starting from scratch. Old farm fields are not starting from scratch. But in primary succession, there has never been life in that spot. There's never been a biological community. So volcanic islands, who knows how a volcanic island forms, roughly? Okay. There are underwater volcanoes. They're called seamounts until they reach the surface. A couple years ago, there were two guys who had their 15 minutes of fame because they were out on a boat in the Pacific, and they actually got to see a volcanic island form. It was really cool. They took video, of course, and uploaded it to YouTube, because that's what we do now. Because there was a seamount, and it was currently erupting underwater, and they were actually seeing material add to the top, and it was small. I mean, they start out little. It takes a long time before they look like Hawaii. And even once you've got a large island, it's still bare, naked rock. There's nothing living on it. No birds, no beautiful tropical plants, no nothing. So, same thing for anything that's scraped down to bare bedrock with no soil. That's the big thing in primary succession, is that there is no soil. So anytime you've got a situation where there's zero soil, you're talking primary succession. Sand dunes are one. If you ever get to go to Lake Erie or go to the ocean, dunes are really fragile because they're early communities. They're early biological communities. They're just getting established. And primary succession takes forever. I mean, really, to build up an actual biological community, we can be talking tens of thousands of years. Seriously? It takes, I used to know this, 3,000 years to build an inch of topsoil? Something like that. I'd have to look it up. But there's no soil. Primary succession, there's no soil. And the first things that we usually see are lichen. Remember, Alice algae took a lichen to Freddy fungus, but now their relationship is on the rocks. Lichen can live on a bare rock. And they do this weird thing where they shoot out little bits of acid from what they aren't roots, but you can call them that. They're little attachment points. And they actually break down the rock, so chunks of the rock will come off. And as that rock dissolves, you get little chunks of minerals. And then as the lichen grow and die, eventually they start to decompose, and eventually you start to actually get soil on top of the rock layer. And you may have seen this if you've hiked or walked where there are, or actually, if you've been on a sidewalk where a bunch of moss has grown and then died, you'll get lichens and you'll get moss. You get little tiny, tiny organisms. And it takes a long time to go from bare rock, from a volcanic bare island to Hawaii. I don't know how long that takes, but maybe hundreds of thousands of years. I'd have to look it up. But it's really, really, really slow because there's no soil to fall back on. So, what I'm going to have you do, when you finish this slide, pull out your vocab, look over Part C, see if there are any words that you feel like you have a grip on now. If you have some ideas but you don't fully understand it, then we'll talk more. I'm thinking now that the test in here will probably be Tuesday of next week. I think we're going to go for... Pardon? Do you? Well, you know what? If anybody had shared a calendar with me, I would know that. But guess what? I haven't had a calendar shared with me. So I know when biology is. That's the only one, and that's because I went out and hunted that down. Tuesday and Wednesday? Okay. Well, I'm going to see if anybody feels like sharing any information with teachers. I know, that would be just ridiculous. Hey, Dylan. I'm a moron. Remind me to ask you why. Remind you. Wait, no, you ask me why later. Okay? Good. I can't even form sentences today. What kind of day I'm having. Apple TV doesn't work reliably. Have a wonderful day, folks. Happy travels.